Welcome back to another episode of CHP Sports with, Kenny. Well, he's that way. Kenny and Anthony. We are thrilled to have you back here. Kenny, welcome in. How was your 4th of July weekend?
Exhausting is the word. Very tired. We visited friends. Well, I had my 5K with my mom Saturday morning, so we're up early.
Congrats to
Then
you and her and getting that done. I know she's been training hard
thank
for
you.
that.
Yes, she killed it. So that was fun. And then we had friends thing Saturday, and then got home at, I don't know, 8 o'clock. We were going all day basically. Sunday, got up, worked out, then went to her mom's house, and then we came back and went to our friend's house, and then we went to fireworks. I got home at like 10 o'clock last night, and then got up and worked today. I'm tired. I did run though today. I trained a little bit.
Nice.
So yeah,
Nice.
exhausted,
Well,
but fun. It was great. We had a good weekend.
exhausted but fun is good. That's a
Yeah,
good problem to have. So I'm glad you had a good weekend with everyone
yeah,
and got that workout in with your mom. It's
yeah.
awesome. So interesting week in sports this week. A few things for us to talk about. We figure because this literally just happened as we were sort of like chatting before we started recording here, is that Roger Federer makes it through the round of, we think, 16.
I
We're
believe. I'm
not
trying to.
great. Yeah. But he wins today on Monday, the 5th of July, 2021 at Wimbledon, which is just incredible. He wins in straight sets over Lorenzo Sonego of Italy, I believe, based on the flag. They're a little showing me on ESPN here. So just incredible, 39 years old. And he's still, the fact he's winning, matches in any tournament is impressive, much less multiple rounds deep into Wimbledon. Extremely impressive. The Sonego is ranked 23rd in the world. So certainly not a slouch in any, very, very excellent tennis player in his own right.
Yeah, so they're in the round of 8 now. That was the 4th round. They're going into the quarterfinals, which would be the round of 8. Okay. I read it incorrectly when I posted on my Facebook. I thought he was already in the round of 8, but still, like you said, getting there at this point, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I guess he's now in the round of 8, right?
Yes, he is now in the quarterfinal round.
That's awesome. So congrats to him. What are your thoughts on someone at that age? I guess basically our age, if at my age, certainly a little younger than you. Getting that far at that level.
Well, the thing I think about immediately is like, how long has he been playing competitively, right? At this point, and to be able to keep up that focus and that level of play for that long against guys that are probably almost half his age at this point. To me, that's the most impressive thing, to be able to keep doing it year in and year out for that long. It's really crazy to me. I think about like I played, just say baseball, right, through college, so maybe I played for 13 or 14 years, and then I was like kind of tired of it. You know what I mean? And then I played softball, right? It was a little different. And that was fun. But this guy's been playing the same sport at the highest possible level you could be at for that long, and it's physically physically and mentally being still able to compete with those people. And there's always new guys coming up, and who are younger and faster, and all that kind of stuff. And he just continues to just be awesome. Like, watching him play is so. I love watching the guy. He's just so good. Like, everything he hits is just so solid and square. And his last guy gave him a little bit. Ended up taking him to, I think they went to the fourth set, I believe. But he won the first 2. I forget. But either way, the guy gave him a couple good runs there. But in the end, he just was just better, more consistently better throughout the match. So, seeing that kind of level of play at that age, to me, is just, and in a sport where it's a physical sport, right? You're sprinting, stopping, starting over and over and over again. The overhand serve, I mean, just the wear and tear on your shoulder, your elbow, right? There's a thing called tennis elbow, right? And these guys are blasting serves 115, 130 miles an hour, so just to be able to still hang with everybody and be, one of the top 8 guys now at Wimbledon. I mean, it's just crazy to think about. I don't know if anybody's ever played that late at this age before. And can you remember anyone this old at this point?
Not Nothing jumps to mind. I mean,
No.
I have never been the biggest tennis fan. In the I'll follow the majors, but I don't follow it closely enough to know sort of I came in around Federer's time, so the people before Federer I'm less familiar with. But yeah, he's certainly playing at his level. As I know he hasn't been as consistent the last year and a half because he was dealing with some injuries, but still, a year and a half ago he's 37, right? He's
Yeah.
still not a young guy.
And
So
you would expect injuries at that point, playing such a physical sport.
yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think the obvious reason to be impressed is just to still physically be able to do it and keep up with the younger guys that are obviously going to be stronger and faster. And as you pointed out, there is a lot of acceleration, deceleration, which, as we all know, is the thing that's hardest on your body, right? Maintaining speed is easy, right? Accelerating, decelerating is not easy, right? It's a ton of wear and tear. The idea of me like hitting a tennis racket like above my head with my shoulder, I just feel like my shoulder would explode once. Like if I hit it
Yeah.
once, not much less, multiple times per week, multiple times in it, around just, yeah. So to me, I guess what's most impressive is, avoiding the injuries, right? Because in some ways, like the power should be there still. Like I know how strong I feel and how strong I am in the gym, compared to when I was younger. It's not, maybe there is a bit of drop off, but not a huge drop off, right? I would expect the power to be there. I'd expect there to be enough quickness, but it's really the fact that those are both still there, and he's avoided the sort of catastrophic injury,
Yeah.
right? And the sort of career-ending, Achilles rupture or something like that.
Yeah. The Achilles, the ACL, the maybe a labrum or rotator cuff. I can't talk. Rotator cuff type tear. Stuff like that, where almost like a pitcher. Imagine your serving arm getting full tear of the rotator or something like that. To me, that's what's super impressive about these guys serving so many balls every game.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament to whatever prehab they're doing to keep those shoulders healthy and strong.
Yeah,
And then,
absolutely.
as you mentioned, I think the thing that gets overlooked is the mental component, and the just how many people stay in the same career for 20 odd years, and don't change jobs, right? Like he's had the same job for 20 plus years at this point, right?
Yeah,
At a certain point, it's like, and it's one thing if he was like consistently getting, I guess, better, like if you were working your way up the corporate food chain, as it were, I can see that. But he's won all the majors,
he's won
right? Like
everything. Yeah,
that's the top of the mountain, right? At a certain point, I mean, if it was me, I'd be like, what am I playing for, right? What, I've proved myself. Like at this, no one sits there and goes, "Oh, Roger Federer was not a very good tennis player." Like no one's going to say that,
yeah. It's more
right?
like, is he the greatest or is he the top
Yes,
two? Yeah, like
yeah, exactly.
he might
So
be
to
the
me,
single. He might be the single greatest player of all time, like in tennis. Period.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and you can make an argument that we got the two greatest right now playing, right? Him and Djokovic,
yeah.
right? So or three with Nadal, right? It's
With
probably those
Nadal.
three are probably the top three of all time.
Yeah,
So to keep that sort of interest, and especially knowing that, no, I know he's probably got outside interests. I'm sure he probably does I don't know his outside interests, but he probably has like humanitarian interests, and he probably does, has charity interests. So I'm
yeah,
sure those other parts of his life get satisfied in some way, right? I'm sure his life is not just tennis, right? I don't know how it necessarily could be for that long. So I hope, or at least I hope, he's getting the other parts of his life are being satisfied outside of tennis. That's probably where maybe he has more interest going forward. But as you put it, the fact that he sort of mentally kept that edge for so long, and kept his interest for so long, is astounding,
yeah.
right?
Just like locked in still. And I just looked. He started as a pro in 1998, so 23 years ago. So he was like 16, 17 years old when he stared as a pro,
It's a long
and
time.
he since became the oldest tennis tour world number one when he was 36. So I mean, but it does talk about how he is a philanthropist. His foundation helps underprivileged kids in South Africa, and he's made like $130 million just playing tennis, something like that.
It's
That's
crazy.
not. Yeah, that's not including endorsements and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I'm sure his endorsements are probably
That yeah,
near that.
that's just prize money, $130 million. So yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, him doing uh, that kind of charity work, maybe that's what still drives him, right? Maybe that's a even though like he probably could get a lot of money endorsement wise either way. But here's a cool stat: career record 1251 and 274. He's got an 82% winning percentage. Yeah. Uh,
That's disgusting.
103 career titles, and I think he's got 20 Grand Slams, I believe, which is one of the highest ones. I think Serena actually has 24 now or something. She's up there
She's
too.
got a lot. Yeah.
Her and Steffi Graf, I think, was up there too. So yeah, I mean, incredible. The longevity thing to me is what's even the most impressive thing. Like I said, more mentally, physically also, right? At that age, still playing, but mentally to be still locked in at that level, it's like, I mean, it takes such a, not that I would even know, but what does it take mentally to be at that level all the time? Everybody's gunning for you, You're getting everybody's
Yeah.
best every time you play them.
Yeah.
They want to beat Roger Federer. Everybody wants to beat you, and you're still beating them, and you're 39, and they're like 26. You know what I mean?
The
It's
Hunger
crazy.
Young Lion against the old wolf on the hill, right?
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, and you don't realize
Yeah.
sometimes when you're in it that how special some of these athletes are, right? Because it's just Roger Federer, right? He's been around for 20 some years, but then you look back at his career, you're like, geez, so impressive. And then I was a big MJ fan, right? And like when you're in it, you don't think about it, and you look back, you're like, oh my god, I think that was amazing. You know what I mean? Like you said, right now we're seeing Djokovic, Nadal, and him all playing, just all beating each other. And you might think one isn't that as good, but it's just because they're playing against the other greatest of all time. Like, you know what I mean? The top three to top
Yeah.
guys I've ever played. Imagine them in a different era playing. Like, they might not have never lost. I don't know. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see sort of how that pans out. I mean, I do think Brett Federer is probably near the end here.
Yeah.
But with that said, the fact, he's in the round of 8 now.
Yeah, but
It'll be interesting to see what
not
happens.
going out decrepit, right? He's still battling. Like he's not like some of these guys you see and you're like, maybe you should have stopped a couple of years back. But this guy is still battling. Like, top 8 in the world. That's crazy.
There you go. All right, our second story we thought we'd handle is the Sha'Carri Richardson, the women's 100-meter champion from the U.S. Olympic trials a couple weeks ago, popped for marijuana, and so that disqualifies her times from the U.S. Olympic trials, and she is not going to be able to compete in the 100 in Tokyo. I think she may still be able to be on the 4x1 team. I don't know if that's been resolved yet, but when the news was first announced, it was they can make a decision one way or the other regarding that. So we thought we'd touch on it because it seems like a hot topic. So I guess what are your thoughts, Kenny?
Well, and I think we spoke a little bit about it. We both agree the rule is like kind of moot. Like, why is that even a rule at this point? So on that side of things, it's like she got popped for weed. It's not a performance enhancer. I'm sure it didn't help her time. I'm sure, you know what I mean? There's no advantage to gain there. But in the end, it is a rule. She knew the rule. She said she knew the rule. She said she knew the possibilities of what might happen. So I actually applaud her for, a lot of these athletes say things that you're like, She was like, look, she's like, look, I did what I
She
did.
took responsibility.
Yeah, and I thought that took a lot of just, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but I just thought it was awesome that she said that and was straight up about it. But unfortunately, like it's still a rule, and whether it's a dumb rule or not, it's still a rule, and she knew with the consequences there. And unfortunately, it might, it's costing her a chance. And she's probably one of the top couple people in the world in 100, right? Maybe it costs her a
top
gold
2 or 3.
Yeah, maybe it costs her a gold medal. It sucks. You feel for her, and especially with her situation with her mom dying and all that kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, no, I think we all empathize with the situation with her biological mother passing away right before the trials. So it's I personally am not a fan of marijuana, but I understand it helps a lot of people, with pain and other, issues. So, it's I agree with everything you said. It sucks. It's her mom passed, her biological mother passing away when she did was just, obviously it sucks no matter what. It really sucks with the timing. If she passes away maybe 2 weeks later, a week and a half later, it's after the trials and we don't have this issue, right? Um, so it's very unfortunate. Like I said, it's probably a very dumb rule. It's certainly probably not performance enhancing for a sprint in any way, right? There's a thread about it in our athletes group on Facebook, and the only thing we really think of is that might help with sleep, right? But
Maybe,
there are other legal things you could take for sleep that probably work just as
yeah.
well. So,
Well,
like, okay,
that's what that was like the argument too. It's like athletes can drink,
yeah, yeah,
right?
like there's other ways to,
Yeah,
to like get yourself to pass out.
yeah.
Um,
And that's actually going to hinder performance probably in the end, right? Uh,
yeah, so
and I think it too. I feel like this happened with a couple snowboarders. I want to say Winter Olympics too that got popped.
it wouldn't surprise me with snowboarding. So,
Yeah, and it was like you're kind of like, and then you're like, why do they even have that, right? You know what I mean? Like, and it's kind
of
of
all sports to be testing for this, why isn't this
yeah.
sport testing for this drug?
And then I think it was Phelps, right? He got suspended for being in a picture smoking. He didn't even get popped. He just
Maybe I don't remember.
yeah, he was. I think he got like a 6 month suspension or something because there was a picture of him smoking weed, and he didn't even test positive for it. He's just and then like he lost
That
endorsements.
that was the other thing that was weird to me
Yeah,
was like the penalty. Like the penalty was so weird. It's like it was like a 1 month penalty, right? I think or something.
yeah, 30 days I think it was.
Which like at that point, it's like that's not even a penalty, right? Like you know what I mean? Like every other performance enhancing drug for USATF, like a steroid, if you're taking like Dianabol
Yeah,
or
yeah,
testosterone or something like that, it's a 2-year ban, right? 2 to 4 year ban. Right now, if you like, if it was some sort of like tainted supplement or something, which does happen, right? Those things that do actually exist, right? They might reduce it, like if you can like provide the bottle, like, hey, I was using these things, and it turns out they test positive for whatever.
yeah,
Um, they might reduce that to like a year. Like I think that's what happened with Gatlin. Like he got it reduced down to like a year and a half or something, like from like a 3 or 4 year ban years ago. But it's like okay, like clearly, if you're reducing the suspension down to a month, it's not performance enhancing, right? Like you yourself realize that it's not performance enhancing at this point. So like in some ways, I agree with it's a rule, and everyone agrees it's kind of a stupid rule, but it's a rule in the books. But at the same time, it's like, well, if everyone like if USATF in the Olympic, whoever's making this decision understands like this is a stupid rule, so we're gonna make the penalty like really really low. It's like okay, like your time penalty is really low, but really what you enforced is a 1 month/4 year penalty because, well, 3 years I guess with this Olympics, but right, Olympics only come every so often, so
yeah,
yes, it's only a month. Like to me, it just seems weird. Like, why is the ban like if you're gonna have the rule, why is the ban limit so low?
yeah. And it
Right? Why not make
actually
it 6 months? Right? Like at least make it something that's actually makes sense. Like I'm glad she'll be able to compete in other meets like Diamond League and other stuff after the Olympics, and potentially the Olympics itself in the 4x1. But it's just like a very strange thing where you're like you have this rule that you're grouping this drug with all these other drugs that it really shouldn't be classified with, all these performance enhancers. But then the penalties are like completely different. So
yeah,
like it's like you're tacitly acknowledging that this rule is really stupid. It's just
correct.
like
And
okay, well,
like you said, that's a great point. It kind of turns into a 3 year Olympic ban, really, because she's missing her 100 meters, and it really only because it overlapped by a couple days, right? I think if they started it when her 100 was, then
yeah, I
she
don't
wouldn't
remember.
be
I
able to
know it's
miss.
close because I know she could do the 4x1, which would
Yeah,
be at the end. It's usually like the very end of the Olympics.
and it's like
So
if you're allowed to
yeah,
do that, what is the difference? You can still run the 100. What is the difference? That's my issue with it too. Other than like it is a dumb rule. Look, when I went to grade school, we weren't allowed to wear hats. I thought that was a dumb rule. But guess what? If I wore a hat, I got in trouble. So I didn't wear a hat. You know what I mean? So there is that side of it, right? And she did take accountability for it, and I appreciate that from her. She didn't throw out some crazy story like, I was at a party and I
Yeah.
inhaled weed, and she was honest and open about it, and I think that takes a lot. And I think I wish more athletes were were more honest about stuff they do when they do get caught. But uh, yeah, it just sucks all around. It's a crappy story. It sucks, especially for someone who went through so much as of late, and to get popped for that, it's like, if they're like, hey, she was doing copious amounts of steroids and she got popped, okay. But it's like, she smoked some weed. She was probably feeling like shit after her mom died, you know. And here we are. So we'll see what happens. Who knows? It might change over the next month or so. I don't know. There's still time.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting situation, and I feel bad for her. Like, I feel bad in the sense that for like we all agree it's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad in the sense that she knew it was a rule, so everyone else has to follow the rule. So
correct.
Yeah. All right. NBA basketball. We've been mentioning it each week because we're on our inexorable march towards the finals. We have finally reached our final two teams. The Phoenix Suns will take on the Milwaukee Bucks. As we mentioned off air to one another, the Phoenix Suns have gotten the luckiest draw of all time going to the finals. Every team they've faced has had their basically best player injured either before the series or sometime during the series become injured. I guess, what are your thoughts? Do you feel for, I guess, who did the Suns beat for the? I don't know who they just played.
They just beat. Oh man, now I'm drawing a blank too.
This is a professional show, by the way. If you're watching,
yes, very professional. They just. I gotta look it up now because I am drawing a blank. It wasn't the Jazz. They were out. Hold on. Suns, Clippers. Yeah, without Kawhi. Yeah. So every series or before that team even got there lost their best player. And this isn't the Suns' fault, right? They're just playing who's put out in front of them. The first series, tough draw for them. Second seed ended up playing the Lakers, who were the returning champs. And, they got a good jump on them, but then Antonio Davis gets hurt. He's out. That kind of makes the Lakers a very average team without him there.
LeBron's just too old to sort of carry a team by himself.
Yeah, and I think right now
with that lineup.
Yeah, right now Davis is their best player or most valuable player, I think, and LeBron is their 1B
facilitator.
Yeah, he facilitates the offense, that kind of stuff. And we saw the drop off, when they did lose Davis. So right, and then they go against the Clippers, and Kawhi didn't even play in the series before, right? He's been out for a while now. I sent you that article. Again, there's some discrepancies with the doctors, and he doesn't like this medical staff now. And I'm like, is it the staff or is it Kawhi? I don't know. I think the guy's a great player. It's becoming a pattern now, though, of him not liking medical staffs. I don't know what's going on with the guy. I hope he gets better, whatever is wrong with his knee. But again, you're missing who I think he's their best player, right?
Yeah.
And, Paul George did have a nice finish to the series. He put up an extraordinary game to actually take a game from them. And but then, the Suns closed it out. So, yeah, now the Suns will play the Bucks, and Giannis has been out, right? So I don't know if he comes back game 2, game 3. I don't know if maybe he does play game 1. I'm not sure what's going on with that. A lot of the stuff they were saying in the game before where the Bucks were playing the Hawks, they were, saying like, oh, if they can, maybe the first 3 games just go 2-1, or because maybe he comes back game 4. It just all depends. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, now they get another team that's not at full strength, and again, no fault of their own.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you just play who's in front of you, and if you beat them, that's what you're supposed to do. More power to you if you take advantage of an injury. And obviously they did have injury to Chris Paul. But it wasn't. He was out, I think, 2 games, maybe 3.
Correct.
So he was able to come back pretty quickly. And in some, to some regard, some of the injuries that the other teams have encountered have been kind of like freak injuries. But, on the other hand, it's like, well, the Suns have managed to keep themselves healthy, right? So that is a testament to their training staff. and the athletes on the team, getting through whatever training they're being put through to keep themselves healthy. So kudos to the training staff and to the athletes in keeping themselves healthy in what has been as we've seen, a very challenging year for NBA athletes in terms of staying healthy, given the quick turnover from last year to this year.
Yeah, and I think like this has to be some sort of record for marquee names like going down.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's not like the third or fourth best guy on the team. It's Trae Young, it's Giannis, it's AD, it's Jamal Murray, it's Donovan Mitchell. These Kawhi Leonard. Like these guys are. I mean, you can make an all-star team out of these guys getting hurt, like an all NBA team almost, right? So, even when the Sixers are still in it, right? Embiid went down on his knee; he was out for a few games. So, the amount of marquee top guy on your team players, I've never seen anything like that before. Usually, the guys that are the best players are pretty durable as well. And then we had on the Nets, right? Kyrie, Harden was out. You had KD, who had the worst injury a couple of years ago. He ended up holding the team together, but just so many injuries. Yeah, it's been crazy to see. And it's basically been like whoever can stay healthiest has the best chance at this point. And that is a testament to your staff and staying healthy and maybe doing some in-season maintenance type training and stuff like that to keep guys healthy. And so they're still hanging on. And Chris Paul was out a little bit, and he's an older guy, so it was good to see him come back and do well.
Yeah. Do you have a pick for the finals?
I think you have to go with the Suns at this point, just because they're the healthiest team, and I think matchup wise, they're a pretty tough matchup for the Bucks because I think the inside game, Giannis tends to dominate in there, but they do have a big man who's pretty formidable inside as well, and they're tough on the outside with Booker and Paul. So I give them.
Yeah, and their pick and roll game is like absurd.
Yeah, it's so good. Two. Yeah, really good to see team doing it like that with a good inside outside mix and using pick and roll and kind of old school basketball, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would have to go Suns as well for the reasons you just mentioned. They're healthier. They've got a little bit more rest. The Bucks have kind of had to grind through a bit more of the postseason, whereas Suns, they had a sweep in. They swept the Jazz, right? I think they swept the Jazz.
Lakers was 4-2 or 4-1, something like that.
Yeah, I think they swept the
Jazz. Yeah.
And they got through this last one in a game less than
those Milwaukee 6 games. Yeah.
So it's just they've gotten sort of cumulative. They have less miles on them, and they were healthier anyway. And as I think we've seen with the Bucks, like they're too streaky. And I can't. Middleton played really well the last 2 games for them.
Yeah.
So kudos to him. You see, he did play really well. He really showed up with Giannis being out. But I just can't. He's just been inconsistent enough where I just can't believe in him being more consistent than Paul and Booker. And is it their big guy's Capella, right? Is that who I'm thinking of?
No, Aiden. Aiden.
Yeah, and Aiden's been really good inside, and you've got they've just got a very good team, and I think they play well. So I'll pick the Suns. I was saying 6. I think Giannis comes back at some point and get a game. You get this sort of uplift game from him coming back, but they might win. Assuming he's like actually a functional Giannis and not like when Trae Young came back and was not functional Trae Young.
Or like Antonio Davis or not Antonio Davis. Man, I cannot talk. AD, we'll just say. But yeah, Ayton is he's a solid player and he's very consistent inside. He's a really high shooting percentage. So I think
he doesn't miss around the hoop.
Yeah, I think. And I think a lot of it's because they shoot so well from the outside, and they have that outside game of Booker and Paul and them guys, and it gives him nice looks inside, and he finishes. So I mean, they were saying the one game that they lost, he didn't have many touches. So then the next game they were trying to get him some more touches inside, which again then opens the outside back up, and they can hit their threes. So it's a good balance they have. So I think they're the most balanced team, and I think they're the most healthy team right now. So and not streaky. They're pretty consistent from game to game. So we'll see. It'll be an interesting series, especially if Giannis comes back.
That's the big question mark.
Yeah.
All right. So that takes care of our third story. I guess the last, I think maybe potentially the last thing we want to mention here is obviously we are a week into the Tour de France. Obviously, that is not necessarily an event that gets a lot of coverage here in the U.S. It's on Peacock and NBC Sports. So it's one of those sporting events that if you're into it, like I am, you're into it, and a lot of people aren't into it. But I think it's worth noting because those athletes are phenomenal, and I get really into it. And it's currently the yellow jersey is being held by Tadej Pogacar, who's just, if you want to sort of watch highlights, if you're like want to catch up on what's going on in the tour, like it's been a very wild tour so far. Lots of excitement, lots of like lead changes. Not that the tour sometimes can get kind of stale where you get like one team is dominant and they get the yellow jersey and then they just kind of hold the yellow jersey. It's like for 2.5 weeks and no one challenges. Like no one even tries to attack them because they know they'll lose. Whereas this tour has been wild. Matthew Van Der Poel kind of had the yellow jersey early, and then he lost it when they hit the mountains. And actually, the first day they hit the mountains, Tadej Pogacar, despite I think he won or was like in the top couple of the time trial, didn't have a great first day in the mountains. Everyone kind of thought he might not be the guy, even though coming into the tour he was a favorite. And then the last 2 days, so they had a rest day to the day we're recording this, which is Monday the 5th. But the 2 prior days, so the 4th and the 3rd, incredible performances in the mountains. Worth watching the highlights of those 2 days if you just want to catch up and see a very dominant cycling performance. Just watch the highlights and watch what he does to the other best cyclists in the world. He didn't win yesterday. He got like 5th, but it was, there was a breakaway. It's hard to explain if you don't follow cycling, but there was a breakaway, and he was with the main group of GC contenders, general qualification contenders, and he waited till it was a mountain stage finish. And so like basically the summit of the mountain, there was like a 2K flat left to the finish. So it was like 3K left, I think, on the mountain. He attacked and just, it looked like he got shot out of a gun, right? And this is after like 100 miles of cycling through mountains. And he just takes off like away from these guys and they all look dead. And he looks, like you or I just jumped on a bike, super fresh, at least for, a minute or two. So congrats to him. Not that he's going to be watching this, but it's super impressive. And I think he's the favorite. I don't think anyone catches him right now. He's got a couple minutes lead over the next best guy. The second place general qualification contender right now. And he looks, hoping there's no mechanical issues or like some sort of crazy crash. I don't think anyone beats him at this point. I just don't see it. Have you been able to watch any of it? I know it's not necessarily your sport.
Nah, and what's crazy when I was younger, I used to always get into it. It would always be on like a random Sunday. You know what I mean? They would have
they'll put it on like the weekend sometimes on like NBC.
It'd be on like one of those bigger network channels. But this weekend I was just so like busy doing things. And I would just try to catch up on like you said, on the bottom of the screen, so-and-so's in the lead and that kind of stuff. But I was always very into it as a kid. Every year I would try to watch it. And, we had I remember was it Greg LeMond back in the day?
Greg LeMond, yeah.
Yeah. So like guys like that, back then, like cycling, I grew up in a very rural area. So it was like, I didn't know what it was all about, and then seeing like that I was like, wow, this is crazy. These guys are riding hundreds of miles up mountains. And I became very interested in it as a kid. But yeah, and the Lance Armstrong era and all that stuff. So I feel like so many Americans got more into it because they had like their guy, right? There was a guy that was dominating and winning almost every year.
There was an entry point into the sport for a
lot. And it got good exposure to the sport. I feel like after everything happened with him, maybe it got a little tainted, maybe got a little off-putting to some people. I don't know, but for me, it wasn't intentional at all. I just was not around much this weekend and near a TV, so I just didn't really see much.
I think it's a combination of, it's on early, right? So, it's not on the major networks. now, right? It's on NBC Sports, which is a network that's going away in Peacock. So you have
Yeah.
to, if you want to watch it, you can search for it and watch it fairly cheaply. I think I have Peacock, so I pay like $5 a month for Peacock, which I know everyone's financial situation is different, but that's not a lot to pay for like a
Yeah.
subscription service. Um,
I
no,
think,
so you can find it, but you have to kind of go out of your way. Like it's hard to run into nowadays. And the
yeah.
other thing I think, which something that I ran into because I got into it like later, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, so like 2014, 2015, somewhere around there, maybe a little earlier than that, maybe it's 2012. So I think 2012, yeah. So I guess it's like almost a decade now. But it's like it took me a while to figure out like what was going on in the tour, like and how it worked. Like why is the person that's like the winner not winning the race, right? That you're watching. Well, it's because it's the race is usually decided on like 2 to 4 stages the entire over 3 weeks. Right? And there's like 2 or 4 stages that really make the difference. The rest of the time, like everyone kind of usually kind of gets similar times, right? And so kind of it's trying to like it helps if you have someone around to explain what's going on. Right? Otherwise, you're like, all right, everyone they keep talking about this guy in yellow that's 8 minutes behind the leader right now. So why isn't the guy in yellow that they're all excited about, not caring about the guy that's 8 minutes ahead?
Yeah.
Right? You have to explain, well, the guy that's 8 minutes ahead is overall he's an hour down. So his 8 minutes that he's getting today don't matter to that guy.
Yeah, it's that cumulative time build up over each stage. But I think too, like back in the day, they would almost come on the last day and give you an hour recap of what was going on.
Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me if they did that.
Yeah, I feel like it was something like that, and then they would show the final stage where it was like, if they could make drama out of it, they could. Like if it was close, but sometimes it was a little closer, and it did matter at the end. And then a lot of times it was just making sure the guy finished the stage, right?
Well, that's the other thing is like the last day when they finished on the Champs Elysees in Paris. The tour is effectively over, right? For the actual overall winner. Like now, the sprinters all want to win the stage, like because that's a big sprint stage to win, right? You're the indelible image people remember, like crossing the line first at the end of the tour. So it's like so that's why you see like the main whoever has wearing yellow is like drinking champagne, like
they're just
on that final bike ride because
it's their victory lap at that point.
Yeah, it's
Um,
crazy.
so it's cool. To me, it's kind of like too like, and like the CrossFit Games, right? It's a 3, 4, 5, I don't know how many day event now, right? And to sit and watch like the first event, they hinted it's going to be like swimming and paddle boating. So, not very exciting, right? But
well, who am I following the splashing water out there?
Yeah. And not that like, look, swimming's cool. And I'm sure there's some cool paddle boarding events and stuff like that, but they're going to be long distance according to Castro's, but I think when they do put the CrossFit Games as a little docuseries where it sums up things and it shrinks things down and then leads into more of the CrossFit-y type stuff at the end, meaning, more of the movements you typically see in CrossFit gyms. That's when it gets cool. And then the problem with CrossFit Games is like Matt Fraser just keeps blowing everyone out on the men's side. So it's by Saturday, he basically has to cut both his legs off to lose. You know what I mean? So, but then the female side has been great, right? But so more competitive. It's been really competitive. So I think those kind of sports, sometimes they do need to be summed up at times and then some kind of drama there just because it's such a long event, I guess.
And I think any event where it's multiple days, summary helps, and also events where it's a bit more esoteric for the average viewer that's going to be like run into it on network television, for example.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you throw like even the basic CrossFit Games, if you throw it on ESPN, right? If they're doing like some sort of like clean ladder or something, like you have to explain. All right, you start with this weight, and if you hit that, you can move up to the next weight.
Yeah.
And it's like basically whoever gets the highest weight fastest, sort of thing. You get the most points or whatever, or you get the highest placing. So even that stuff you have to explain. Like paddleboarding, like I don't know what goes into paddleboarding. Like you'd have to explain that to me. I'm like I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. How are we doing this? Like, what do you have to do? What are the rules? And I'm sure I'll get into it once I understand like what's happening. But certain things like swimming in open water is not really made for TV.
No, and that's what I mean. It's not that it like I wouldn't watch it, but it's not a made for TV type event. And look, if Tour de France put out a Netflix docuseries next week after it ended, I'd 100% watch that. You know what
Oh,
I
it'd
mean?
be
Like,
great.
yeah.
Especially
So,
for this tour, it's like just the first week alone, there's been like insane stuff happening.
yeah, and
First
that's
9
what
days.
CrossFit was doing. Like every year, they were putting out the post, games little documentary, and it was great. They create drama. They show things that happen behind the scenes, that kind of stuff. And I thought they did a really good job with that. So like you could even do that with. I feel like they used to do that on like ABC back in the day with like Ironmans. They would show Ironmans, but obviously you're not going to show everybody biking, X miles.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
film a bunch of people, and then they see like, oh wait, who won and who had the best story. Let's put
yeah,
them as like the focus of our.
and it would create that interest as a viewing sport, right? Because I mean, overall, watching a Ironman, it's not the most exciting thing in the world, right? Uh,
What are they doing? Swimming.
they're
What are
swimming,
they doing now?
yeah,
Still swimming.
still swimming, and then they're going to run and bike after that. So like, or bike, right? The bike then run.
Bike then run.
Yeah. So I think there are ways to do it that make it very interesting. I mean, look, I told you I watched a documentary of the ladies rowing across the Pacific Ocean. Right, they just rowed every day. Right? Look, but the way they did it in the documentary was awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I watched someone do the whole Appalachian Trail. Like again, it's we're talking like months. Like, but it was the way they did it. It was cool. It was made for TV, right? So I think there are ways that networks could capitalize off of that and sum up these longer type events. But I think too, like watching certain uh, parts of the tour, I think are cool too, especially if there is a couple guys battling for the lead. But you said this guy's kind of blowing everybody away at this point. So
Yeah, I mean, there's still been a lot of excitement, and I just the form he's shown, the fitness he's shown, I don't think anyone can hang with him in the mountains, right? And that's really where you win or lose the tours in the mountains. The flat stages just end up being big group sprints, and everyone gets the same time in those cases, right? So that's something hard to explain to an American audience. Like that guy crossed first, why doesn't he get a better time? Well, because that's just the rules. Like
yeah,
it's a
it's
big
just the
group
way it
sprint,
is.
everyone gets the same time because that way it like avoids getting the guys that are like competing for the win into like trouble where they, can have an accident in the last like kilometer in a race. They don't, like the 2 seconds they gain there is nothing compared to the 10 minutes or hour they're going to gain in the mountains.
Yeah.
Right. So they shouldn't be there. So, it's hard to explain that to an audience, that doesn't necessarily know that is used to like, if you finish first, you get the best time. Well, not really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just don't see anyone. They've already gotten the time trial out of the way. They're in the mountains. I think the stage tomorrow is kind of like a mix of like like rolling hills, a few smaller hills, and then like it's a big stage. So that's the day this goes live. The day after this episode goes live, it's a big mountain stage. So that should be interesting, I believe, to see how that shakes out. I mean, if he gets through that stage with the yellow, because that's probably one of the harder stages. I just don't. If he doesn't crack, doesn't like his fitness doesn't fall off, which again, based on what he's shown so far and the fact today's, the day we're recording it, Monday is a rest day, he should be in great form for that day. And I just, I'm sure there'll be a lot of attacks on the mountains, or at least I hope there's a lot of attacks because that makes it more fun as a viewer. And that's the way this tour has gone so far. Hopefully, some of the other contenders think they could still crack him. If they feel like he's just in another league, they might not even try, which would make it boring. But hopefully, they don't.
Well, then you got to hope too that he doesn't get hurt or crash or anything like that.
Yeah, that's always like I said, barring injury or barring
Yeah.
some sort of crash. Because
you never want to see that happen ever.
No, and the thing is, with those, if you obviously, just go check, just search for cyclist, fatality, and you'll find like a new one every couple days in the U.S. because just crashing on your bike or getting hit by a car on your bike is.
There's been I want to say there's been 2 NBA players recently that have gotten hit and killed on their bikes. Like not currently playing players, but retired guys.
Potentially, yeah. It's very,
Yeah, and I'm like, man, I'm like, maybe I'll just stay on my in-place ride. Yeah. But I have a park I can ride at too, which is nice. No cars, but
yeah. So if you're in a car, give bikes a lot of berth. Give them a wide berth.
Yeah, I get really mad when I'm riding and people just
zoom right next to you,
fly by like a foot away. It's like, come on, man! Like either slow down or move over, or both. right? And if someone's coming the other way, I'll just get off the road. I don't care. I'm not trying to ride in the Tour de France. I'm just trying to ride my bike. But sometimes it does get frustrating when people don't move and they're just flying.
Yeah, because it's super dangerous for you. It's like no danger to them at all, right?
Zero.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Unless I
it's going
land
to
in
cost them.
yeah, unless I land in their lap, then it might be dangerous for them. But
Yeah,
I mean, it does get frustrating, and it can be scary because like my road again, I live in a very rural area. There's no shoulder on my roads, so it's just like you're riding, but it's not a very uh, crowded road or popular road. But when people do come down it, because it's
they're
rural,
flying.
they're going fast. So just keep an eye out for your riders. They're just trying to get a ride.
Just trying to stay in shape out here.
Yeah, just not trying to get hit
Yeah.
by a car.
Yeah. Uh, so obviously this week coming up, we have more Tour de France. We have the NBA Finals starting. Wimbledon should finish this coming weekend, so that should be done by the time we have our next episode. What else is coming up? I'm trying to think. Those are all the main things I can think
Yeah,
of.
this time of year, they're like the three big ones. I believe Wimbledon's Sunday morning. I think it finishes up
Yeah, for the
usually
men at least.
for
Yeah,
the
it's
men.
usually
Maybe the
Sunday morning.
women's Saturday evening or something like that. I saw two. Coco's playing doubles as well. I forget when the doubles end. They might end on Friday. I like watching doubles too. I find them interesting. I don't know. The ball's just flying all over the place. There's people are pegging it at other people. I don't know. It's wild. But yeah, I didn't know she played doubles. She's in the women's singles, but so yeah, it should be a good weekend of that kind of stuff in different sports. Right now, you're big three, if you will. Basketball, yeah, but like the tour, Wimbledon, like some different kind of things that interest us. So yeah, it's that time of the year. There's no football. Basketball's wrapping
No
up.
football.
Yeah, and baseball's in the boring months. That's what I always say.
Yeah, the All-Star game's coming up pretty soon for that, I think, right?
Yeah,
I hear people talking about it, so that's
it's
somewhat
usually
soon, I think.
it's usually around 4th of July, so it might be next week or the week after, somewhere around there. I know the teams are picked now or whatever they won't. I mean, it might be worth it talking about the Angels player. I think it's Otani is his last name.
Yeah, Shohei Ohtani, who is the first guy ever selected as a pitcher and as like a regular player.
Yeah, DH and a pitcher. They're making him. He's putting up numbers we haven't seen since like Babe Ruth as far as pitching and hitting in the same year. Crazy special talent to be able to do that. He's got like 27 or 20 home runs or 25 home runs.
I think he has 30 home runs.
Yeah, and he's pitching
something stupid.
And he's pitching almost like at a regular clip at this point. So it's again, when you're in it, you don't really appreciate it as much. I feel like like 50 years from now, I'm like, there was a guy that hit 30 home runs in the first half of the year and he pitched the whole time too. So
it is a week from tomorrow when we're recording. So a week from the day this comes out. It'll be Tuesday the 13th. Yeah.
Okay.
July 13th.
So that means the Home Run Derby will probably be next Monday then? It's usually the night before.
I assuming they're doing a Home Run Derby? Yeah, I would guess so.
Cool beans. So I'll be watching that. I try to. Sometimes it's on too late.
Right. All right. So I think that's it for this week's episode. Obviously, you can follow Kenny on Instagram at
KBarber39.
Yeah, you remember this week. You can follow myself at Durazio Anthony or Complete Human Performance at Complete Human Performance. The Crucible is coming up. We are doing group training for the Crucible. If that is something you are interested in, it's for all levels. It'll be for whether you're someone that kind of like us that's just probably going to do, at least myself, that's probably going to just do it to do it and sort of see how I do. Do some training for it, but also keep some of my regular training. This group training is probably for you. And also, if you really want to try and excel at it, this group training is also for you. Kenny and I will be 2 of the 4, potentially 5 coaches that'll be running it. So I will post a link to an email list in the description below if you're interested. While you're down there, if you wouldn't mind giving us a like and a subscribe to the channel, we'd appreciate it. If you got this far, you're probably enjoying it, so we'd appreciate it if you could do that. And we will see you all next week. Peace out.
See you guys.